Well, good evening, Arkansas. This is Chief Forecaster coming back here once again, here to give you guys your winter outlook for the 2023 to 2024 season. So, if you're on our Patreon, you've already saw this outlook. It is going to be a very crazy and wild winter coming our way, and don't be surprised by February and March. I have gray hair, okay? So, we have a lot to talk about. We've got a lot to go over here, but I want to start off in saying that this goes for December. This does not include anything in November or anything like that. So the November one is going to be for our fall outlook, and you can go look at our fall outlook on our YouTube here. If you need that link, just let us know in the comments here. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started here. And what we're going to talk about first is El Nino winters here in Arkansas. We've had a lot of questions over the last couple of months, back in the spring and the summer. What does El Nino mean? What does it do for us here in Arkansas? And especially, what does it do for us during the winter time? Okay, so this is the pattern. This is the overall pattern that you have in a typical El Nino pattern. That means everything is normal and peachy normal, stuff like that. But this is what happens during a typical normal season here. So you have your polar jet across northern Canada, warmer than average conditions across the Pacific Ocean, over towards western Canada, down into the northern plains, and then colder than normal conditions across our area because we have that strong subtropical jet stream moving over. That brings a lot of storm systems, a lot of precipitation. It keeps things pretty cold across our area here. Okay, so like I mentioned before, the subtropical jet leads to a lot of storm activity across Arkansas, leading to cooler than normal conditions. These systems typically ride along the Gulf Coast, producing sometimes some winter weather if we have the cold air in place. There's a lot of times we'll have the system, we'll have a ton of moisture, but the cold air will just be absent here. So just keep that in mind moving forward, okay? So let's move this along. So what does the word El Nino mean? What does that mean? I know a lot of people have been wondering that, especially this year. What does that word mean? Well, basically, we have to take a look out west, and we have to take a look at what's called the equator, and you can see which temperatures are warmer, which favors El Nino, and which cooler favors the La Nina season here. So you have to take a look out there. Basically, you're looking at the central and eastern tropical Pacific Ocean, and if it's warmer than normal, typically that would mean an El Nino season. If it's below normal, it's La Nina. If it's a kind of a combination between the two, then it's likely a neutral year here. Okay, so let's take a look at our normal storm tracks with an El Nino, and how does that affect our severe weather season here? Well, as you guys saw last year and early this year, we didn't have a lot of winter weather. We had a few, don't get me wrong, we had a few bouts of winter weather. I know in December with the Arctic blast, and I think back in February we had an ice storm or two, but we didn't see a lot of widespread winter weather here because of the fact that our low pressures kept going north. We had a lot of severe weather issues, especially in February and into March, because your systems were going from Colorado through southeastern Kansas up into the mid-Atlantic. That is a recipe for severe weather here in Arkansas, especially if your Gulf of Mexico is well above normal. However, in an El Nino situation, what we're in now heading into the winter, your low pressures will likely track from the Four Corners region through central Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, out into the Atlantic, which produces severe weather along the Gulf Coast. And typically for us here in Arkansas, we are on the colder side of the low, which is the northern and the northeastern part of the low pressure itself here. So basically that's what it means. You have these Gulf Coast riders here, and if you guys know what if you are a weather enthusiast and you know what a Gulf Coast rider system is, I think you kind of get the idea on where I'm going for with this winter outlook. But basically, that's what you get. So you have systems that produce severe weather. Depending on where the warm front ends up, 9 times out of 10, it ends up stalling out central Louisiana, right there near the Vicksburg area. They get a lot of severe weather. We end up getting a lot of cold rain. So that's typically it. So now let's break down the winter outlook month by month. I didn't do this with the fall outlook, but I'm going to do it with the winter outlook because there's going to be a lot of kind of a roller coaster ride as you get towards this upcoming winter here, okay? So we're going to start off with this. I want to talk to you guys about this before I start breaking everything down. This is basically tornado outbreaks versus what type of pattern you're in. Basically, El Nino, neutral, La Nina. Remember, you're in fall. So during fall and winter seasons, that is typically where we see a lot of tornado activity, depending on the system, depending on what kind of pattern overall that we're in. But you're talking climatologically speaking, basically You're at the highest peak with El Niño. You're kind of right there in the middle with neutral. And in a La Nina seasons we saw last winter up until February, we were below normal in terms of the tornado count here. So kind of keep that in mind. But the majority of these, especially along the southern plains and the Gulf Coast, that is typically where we have a lot of tornado activity here. Okay, so let's go and talk to you guys about what has happened during this year and all. Our tornado count for Arkansas and all here. And you can see with our graph here, January started off 6 tornadoes. February 3, 9, including the March 31st tornado outbreak. Some of those tornadoes were rather significant. April and May, we kind of took a lackluster. June was very, very active with tornado counts. July, we kind of took a kind of went quiet as well. And then August, September, and October, not a single tornado here in Arkansas. And that is about half of your fall right there with September and October. So let's hope that continues. But we're going to see what happens next month. We're going to see what happens as we get towards the December and January time frame here. But outside of March, January, and June, things have been near normal to even below normal in terms of our tornado count here. Okay, so let's talk about the temperature outlook here. Okay, let's talk about what to expect for the December and the January time frame here. And a lot of people are going to be asking me, is there a chance of a white Christmas this year? Okay, so let's take a look at December. All right. Right now, I have you guys above normal. Now, I want to stress something because I know somebody's going to see this. They're going to be like, oh, man, it's just going to be like 90 degrees, all things heat. It's not going to do anything. Well, I think overall, you have to count for the beginning of the month and the end of the month. Overall, for the entire month, I think you're going to finish just a couple degrees above normal. Because early December, you're going to have a lot of warm-ups, kind of getting you ready to switch fully over to the winter pattern. That may include a few severe weather events, stuff like that. So something to keep in mind here. But as you get towards the middle and the late part of December, I think you will flip the script to a much colder pattern, as you can see in January here. You can see the drastic day-night difference between December and into January here, okay? So that's what I'm thinking. There is a considerable uncertainty with December, as the month will feature a lot of multiple transitions from fall to winter, winter to fall. Temperatures will end just a tad, just a touch above normal. That's it. But my gut feeling right now, just telling you guys straightforward, I do believe, and I've had a lot of dreams about this the last couple of weeks, just how that gut feeling, I think we're going to have a white Christmas here in Arkansas this year. It's just a gut feeling I have. I got a feeling I'm going to be sitting here Christmas Day talking about snow here in Arkansas. So we'll see what happens. I'm just throwing that out there, but that's what I'm kind of thinking at this point. January, winter will make its full 100% appearance, and that's going to leave with temperatures well below normal. So keep that in mind. January is going to be very, very cold across our area here. Now, let's take this out to February and to March. January and February is going to be where you see a lot of winter weather here in Arkansas. A lot of winter weather and temperatures being below normal here. So just kind of keep that in mind. Also in March. Now, March, what's going to end up happening, yes, you are going to start to warm up. But unlike this past March, when you were talking about severe weather and tornadoes, I do not think that will be the case this time around. El Niño winters are very, very known to continue into at least mid to late March. So keep that in mind here. I think early, mid-March, we will still be talking about winter-like conditions here, still talking about the cold air and everything like that here. But yeah, winter temperatures will likely dominate both February and March. Unlike last year, temperatures will likely remain below normal across the area, with some warm-ups being seen as we get towards March. Also, one more thing I forgot to mention for the January one. You are probably around that third to fourth week. You're probably going to have what's the typical January thaw, where you warm up a bit before you drop off once again. We saw this back in 2021, where temperatures were in the 70s. We were warming up pretty well. We had a severe event, and then you got into February, and you had basically Snowmageddon around that Valentine's Day here. So keep that in mind, something that we're going to have to watch as we get towards that December, January into that February time frame here, especially January and February here, okay? So let's talk about this. A lot of people have been asking me, what are we looking like for snow? What are we looking like for the entire winter for the snow potential? Okay, now, this is December. There's a lot of uncertainty going into December here, okay? This could end up being very, very below normal, or it could be very, very above normal. It just depends on a lot of things I'm going to talk about coming up here in just a little bit. But that's the December outlook that we have gone for so far. I almost went above normal from Central to North Arkansas. I almost did it, but I decided just to be a little bit more conservative. I think the average will probably cut it because you're going to have a lot of transitions. You're going to have a lot of systems come through. They're going to have warm air to start, precipitation on its back end, stuff like that. Not really equating to a lot of winter storms, but we will see. I think, like I said before, my prediction right now is I think we will be talking about snow right around that Christmas time frame here. Okay, so let's take a look at January. Like I said, I know a lot of people are going to get to December and they're going to be like, oh man, winter's over with, nothing's going to happen, stuff like that. You guys are going to have to be patient with me this winter, okay? I know everybody wants snow and cold. You're going to have to wait till probably January. I think January and February are going to be your 2 months where you see the majority of your winter weather and cold air. Basically, this is what we call a backloaded winter. Basically, you don't get everything at first and then you start to warm up later on. You stay relatively warm at the beginning and you transition over to a more winter-like pattern once you get into January and February and March. This is very typical in an El Nino pattern. You can take this back to 2015. You can take this back to 2009 and 2010. There's a lot of years that you could take this back to where you've seen kind of December be the transition point, and then January and February ends up being snow and cold here. Okay, so let's take a look at this. Like I mentioned before, December has extreme uncertainty on overall snowfall outlook, as we will see likely multiple transitions across the area from fall to winter and then in reverse. As of now, I think average seems to be the best call. However, we could approach above, especially late December. Like I mentioned before, guys, I think my gut feeling is that we will be talking about snow probably around that Christmas time frame. So we'll see. That's just my early thoughts, but we will see. We get into January, like I mentioned before, winter is going to make its 100% full appearance, especially with that subtropical jet. A lot of cold air pulling down from Canada and probably up there in the Arctic regions. I think we will see a lot of snowfall. I think this is going to end up being more likely central and southern Arkansas favored versus north. We will see about that. I still have you guys up there above, but normally in the El Nino seasons, your storm systems are along the Gulf Coast or in the Gulf of Mexico itself, so it kind of robs you guys up there from seeing a lot of snowfall. But I still think you guys will probably finish maybe an inch or two above normal overall here, okay? So let's talk to you guys about February and the March. This is February's outlook here, and you can kind of see what I mean, that cutoff point up there from northern Arkansas to central and south. This is not being biased or anything like that. This is just how El Nino seasons work, because like I mentioned before just a second ago, a lot of storm systems track along the Gulf Coast or track through central Louisiana, and 9 times out of 10, if you have a lot of cold air to work with, it's going to cut off somebody, especially in northern Arkansas. So keep that in mind. If you see a lot of that in the winter, don't get upset. I still think you will finish at least a couple inches, maybe an inch or two above normal up there, but well above normal for central and south Arkansas here, because you'll have a lot of mergers between the cold air and the moisture. Now let's take this to March. March, you can see I have much of the area near average. South Arkansas, I have you guys above because of the fact, especially around that first 2 weeks of March, I do believe you will probably have a sneaky winter storm or something like that may try to move through with a lot of cold air still in place that may just favor more southern Arkansas than does central and north. So just kind of keep that in mind. Like I said before, some areas this is going to vary a lot, especially getting into winter and stuff like that, but I still have a lot of confidence that at least central and south Arkansas is going to be favored as we get towards this winter. If you're in north Arkansas, that doesn't mean you're not going to see an inch of snow or even a snowflake. It's just that you're going to have a better overall shot for central and south Arkansas than you are from north Arkansas here, okay? So, like I mentioned before, both months, the subtropical jet coupled with repeated cold shots, that's going to be from your Arctic jet and your polar jet kind of merging into that more of a unified jet stream across the area. That's going to result in well above normal snowfall potential for central and south, near normal to above normal up there in northern Arkansas. In March, warm-ups will be more frequent across the area, so near normal to above normal still continues, but we'll have to see. I think March, you'll have to watch out for a few ice potentials as well here, okay? So let's talk about severe weather, okay? I know a lot of people are so excited about winter weather, you can't ignore the severe weather. And one thing I want to stress too, before we get into winter outlook and stuff like that, not winter. Look, we start talking about winter systems and stuff like that. We're gonna have a lot of clashes. You're gonna have a lot of severe weather, winter weather, severe weather, winter weather, severe weather, winter weather. I want to make this clear right now. It is crucial that you do not ignore severe weather just because it's not winter weather. Okay, it's very, very crucial. The attention that we had back in March, where all that stuff was going on, I need you guys to continue that every time we have a severe weather event. Don't ignore it just because we have winter weather right behind it. I want to make that clear right now, because a lot of people will do that. We'll have both severe weather and winter weather, and they want to hear about winter weather more than severe weather. And this year has been rough for severe weather, guys. So don't ignore severe weather. We'll get to the winter side at some point, but don't ignore severe weather, guys. Okay, so let's talk about it. Like I mentioned before, late December, I think what's going to end up happening, just from a gut feeling perspective, I think you're going to have probably one or two storm systems that's going to come through, and you're going to have kind of a battle line where you have severe weather and you have winter weather on the backside, like I just mentioned. So right now, I think North Arkansas' safe bet will be average. I think you'll have a few severe events here and there, but I think it's going to be average. Central and especially South Arkansas, I have you guys above normal for right now for late December because of the fact that you're going to have a lot of clashes of air masses. You're going to have a lot of instability trying to come in at the last second. I think you guys are going to be more favored for severe weather down there. Now, let's take a look at January. Now, you notice in January, you go from basically above normal to below normal. I almost went well below normal in January, but something I will watch, like I mentioned before, around that 3rd to 4th week of January, you will have that January thaw. You will start to warm up a little bit before you get right back into the freezer. So I think there may be some instances of some severe weather, mainly favoring southern Arkansas because of warm front setups. El Niño winters are so typical with those warm front setups that are coming in southern Arkansas. They won't make it to central. They'll just kind of stall out down there, and you'll have that round of severe weather down there. So right now, I think below for central and north, and I think near normal down there in southern Arkansas as we get towards that December and January time frame here. So like I mentioned before, severe weather will likely be an issue for central and south because the subtropical jet will become stronger as you get later into the winter time because wind shear naturally grows once you get into the December, January, and February time frame. Further north, due to moisture issues, severe weather should be near normal. January, due to a lot of cold air intrusions, you'll probably see the polar jet come south, the Arctic jet come south, stuff like that. Severe weather will likely be near to slightly above normal across Arkansas here, so something to keep in mind. Now, this is going to be for February. I'm going to go ahead and speed blitz this through. This is February. Now, North Arkansas, you're well below normal for severe weather. Central, you're below. And Southeastern Arkansas, I have you above just in case we get a system that kind of track along Southern Arkansas. You have a warm front in place. We'll have to see what happens with that, okay? And then you get into March, like I mentioned before, you'll start seeing some warm-ups and stuff like that. So severe weather, especially late March, will probably become a little bit more frequent. Stay tuned for the April, May, and June time frame and the spring outlook coming out as we get towards February 2024. I'll designate a date at a later time, but I'm very concerned about April. I'll just tell you that right now here. So mainly favoring Central and South Arkansas, especially in late March here, guys. Okay, so let me see here. Let me go over to this. This is going to be the rainfall outlook. And this is the rainfall outlook. So this is December to January. Typical with an El Niño season, you're going to be above normal across the area with a strong subtropical jet. Basically, that jet stream that you guys saw earlier on that kind of rides along the Gulf Coast. That will help to bring a lot of storm systems. And whatever drought concerns we have going into December will likely be dealt with by the time we close out 2023. So something to keep in mind here across the area. And you can see well above normal down there and far southern Arkansas as we get towards January. Okay, so let's talk to you guys about February and into March. Same thing, well above normal, because that's typical with an El Niño pattern. You'll have these systems move through a lot of moisture. So even if you don't see winter weather, you're going to see a lot of heavy rainfall events, especially across central and south. So, like I mentioned before, something we'll have to watch. Any drought issues that will be there and present will likely be resolved as we get into the winter time frame here, guys. Now, let's talk about ice, because I think ice will also be an issue as well here. Okay, not as bad as like the December 2000 ice storm, that crippling ice storm, or the crippling ice storm we saw in 2009, 2010. But there will be ice issues. That's just typical in a southern winter winter months and stuff like that. You have a lot of ice issues because you have a very warm Gulf. You have a lot of shallow, cold air. Basically, that will equal a pretty much an ice event. Okay, so right now, as it stands, I have December as below normal. I didn't have the confidence to go average because of the fact that you're just going to have a lot of more of extreme temperature differences, like 80s ahead, 20s and 30s behind. You really don't have a lot of leeway to work with as you talk about ice. So something that we'll keep an eye here. Okay, so you get into January, Southern Arkansas becomes more favored for ice because of the fact that, like I mentioned before, you'll have a lot of storm systems that may try to sneak across the area. This track will probably be like a more of a North Louisiana track, where you have some of that shallow, warm air kind of come in Southern Arkansas. Central and north is all snow, but Southern Arkansas, you're dealing with some ice issues. So something to keep in mind here, okay? So yeah, so both months will likely feature pretty much below normal ice events across the area, but we could see some ice events, especially in the late December time frame, Christmas. January right now, Southern Arkansas looks to be the favorite area, but we'll have to see right now. It depends on what happens, how warm the Gulf is, the cold air, and all that at this point. But I want to make a disclaimer, like I mentioned before, I'm not like saying we're going to have a Christmas storm or anything like that. It's just a gut feeling. It's a gut feeling we're going to be dealing with something around that time frame. It may not be on Christmas Day, but it may be maybe the week after or week before, kind of similar to last year where we had that Arctic blast around December 22nd. Most areas, especially along the Arkansas-Missouri border, featured a white Christmas because there was still some snow on the ground. So something like that. I'm going to have to watch that late December time frame very closely here, okay? Now let's talk about February and March. As you can see, an average amount of ice events across central and southern Arkansas. North Arkansas, you're still below. And then March time frame, I think you still have to watch southern Arkansas here. But something that we'll have to keep in mind here. So let me go back to this real quick. So, yeah, so something to have to keep an eye on here, guys. Around that March time frame, southern Arkansas will be more favored for those ice events here because I still think you'll probably have a couple of winter events around that first and second week of March, and then it'll just end right then and there. Okay, now I want to show you guys this before I wrap up this winter outlook here, and this is going to be, let me see if I can get this. This is the domestic model here. Okay, so basically this is the Japanese model. I love using this model because it gives you a pretty much an 80% accuracy of what's going to happen. No model is 100%, but this does pretty well, especially in the winter. Okay, so this is looking at pretty much the entire area here. Okay, so you're talking North America, South America, over into the Western Pacific. You're talking the Atlantic, Gulf of Mexico, Caribbean, etc. Okay, do you see this right in the middle? It basically looks like a bullseye right here. Okay, this is going to be very, very, very important. This is basically your El Niño. Basically, this is your Central and Eastern Pacific. This is how warm your water temperatures are now. For you to get a very, very cold winter here in Arkansas, you need this western side, this side over here. You need this western side here. I don't know if you guys see there's my mouse now, but this western side over here to be very, very warm, and you need your eastern side over here to at least be warm, maybe even slightly below, but not as warm as it is out here towards the west. So you're looking at the January time frame here. Well, you're looking at December, January, and February. And basically, it's just an average. So it basically has that western zone very, very warm, while the eastern zone over here is still relatively warm, but not as hot as it is over here. So what this does, look out here towards the Gulf of Alaska. It pushes that warm air into Alaska, builds that ridge, really amplifies the ridge up there. What comes up must come down. So basically, warm air goes up in Alaska, cold air comes down from sometimes the northern pole. Sometimes those Arctic regions up there, cold air gets filtered south. And you can see right here, there's Arkansas, Louisiana, much of the southeast, below normal in terms of temperatures as you get towards December, January, and February in terms of all 3 months combined as one. So keep that in mind. So temperatures well below, as a matter of fact, that's well below normal temperatures. Here's your precipitation, well above normal precipitation as well, especially for Arkansas, Louisiana, and the southeast. Like I mentioned before, guys, I think by the time we get into January, February, you're going to start talking about a lot of winter weather here across the area, okay? And then, like I said before, this is just looking at that. You guys just saw that a second ago. Gulf of Mexico, we'll have to watch out for those temperatures here. I think that may lead to a couple of tornado events along the Gulf Coast. If you know anyone that's down there along Florida, just kind of keep that in mind. They see a lot of activity down there during El Nino seasons here. So that's all I got for you guys right now in terms of the winter outlook. Like I mentioned before, we are going to watch that Christmas time frame here. I think late December is going to be very, very interesting. And if we don't see anything in December, it's not the end of the world. January and February is going to feature a lot of winter weather activities, winter weather opportunities, and a lot of cold air here, guys. So we'll keep you guys updated right here in your source for all things Arkansas weather.